Welcome to That Workplace Experience podcast, the podcast where we look at the best-in-class workspaces and speak to the people behind the places. This episode explores Dockshed at Canada Water, British Land's landmark new workplace destination designed by Allies and Morrison with the interiors by Conran and Partners. Dockshed reimagines the traditional office arrival experience through a hospitality-led lens. We're joined by Michael Wiseman, who's head of campuses at British Land, and Simon Kincaid, director at Conran and Partners, who take us behind the strategy, the vision, and the design thinking that shaped this remarkable project. For a more detailed deep dive, check out the show notes for links to the project photography and supporting materials.
You've obviously been at British Land since 2011, is it?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a long time, 15 and a bit years. I came for 2 years, so that's a little bit of a surprise to me.
Wow.
Yeah, but here I am.
Just a quick stop off.
Quick stop off 15 years later, yeah.
You must have seen so many changes in how we design workplaces and the evolution of how things have moved.
Yeah, it's changed dramatically. Like I look at our business, and when I joined 15 years ago, we were still in that world of, we built great buildings. They were like functionally great buildings. They ticked all the boxes, looked good on paper, looked good from the street, but probably not a huge amount of thought. And I might be doing a disservice to people went before me, but probably not a huge amount of thought on the experience for people on the inside. I think that's probably the biggest change that we've seen. And if I think about how our business has evolved in that period of time, it's much more focused on the end user, on the customer, on what the experience is. That goes what happens within the buildings, but most important thing for us has been, that's what's really shaped our campus strategy.
And Simon, Conran's been well known for doing hospitality for a number of years, urban regeneration. And I think what's really interesting about the Dockshed has been how it's almost been flipped on its head. We've spoken to a lot of people in the past, in fact, in the podcast about how hospitality is influencing the design of office space. But with the Dockshed, you've almost made the hospitality the front end of it.
As a business, we've worked on and specialise in hospitality, residential, some retail, and always fusing different types of projects together. And this project is a bit of a hybrid in that it's cafe, it's a social space, it's a lobby for a commercial space as well. So we're always blending those different elements together. And as a studio, back in the day, Terence owned, designed, ran many, many restaurants, hotels. It then led into residential. It's now moved into commercial. And we're blending those together. And working with British Land, we've worked in a hybrid of projects. So working on their project hub, it's a listed building, it's a workplace. We've worked on the founding next door to the Dockshed, which is a residential scheme, 186 apartments. And now we're working on this space, which is more kind of commercial bias. And even with Allies and Morrison, the architects, we've collaborated with them on the German Gymnasium at King's Cross. So that's a restaurant. We've worked on residential projects with them, and then this is a commercial project. So we're very used to working on a hybrid and a different type of applying the thoughts of one typology into the kind of the shell of another typology.
Must be a dream then, the hospitality weaving in. And obviously we've seen this massive move where amenities are being plugged into office space to develop this experience element. It must be a dream for you on a campus, as head of campuses, looking at this on a bigger scale.
Yeah, I think for sure. Like you asked earlier, what's that big change been? And I think that is the big change. It's thinking about experience, and that's why we've worked with these guys on Dockshed. We've done this before. Inside buildings, having different teams of looking at both the outside and the inside, absolutely makes sense. When I turned up to British Land, as I said before, we delivered great buildings, but the receptions were like these big cavernous spaces, some artwork, piece of furniture, which you probably never sat on, and we spent a fortune both picking and procuring. That wasn't a particularly useful use of space. It wasn't something that could be an extension of our customers' workspace. And so that's why we've made this shift. We did it first at 100 Liverpool Street, working with a hospitality specialist on the inside, really focused on bringing that building to life. We've done it here at Dockshed. But what I think, a lot of people thinking like that now in terms of the amenity offer, what that experience is like. What we can do a little bit differently is that whole campus experience. And, I think the model has really grown into itself, and it's probably never been more relevant than it is now. What we have the opportunity to do is, not only create great buildings and great floor plates and then great experience within those buildings, but the experience around is super important. So we curate the public spaces, the retail mix, the events. You bring all of those things together, and we talk about trying to make, and it's a bit cheesy, but trying to make the best places to work in London, and we're able to do that because we can just influence so much more.
And how have you seen that evolve as well with the campuses? Obviously, you've worked on Broadgate, Paddington Central, Regent's Place, and now Canada Water. I imagine, obviously we're going to dig in more with Canada Water because it must be always like a blank canvas to a degree, but
yeah,
there's obviously different places and different environments that you've built these campuses. How have you seen that evolve over time?
Well, I think Broadgate's like the example you'd probably talk to. And actually, walking up here this morning, walked through there, and it's amazing. Like sunny morning, absolutely buzzing. People sitting outside cafes having breakfast and just enjoying the place. Like if we'd made that walk 10 years ago, well, none of that would have existed.
It was pretty gritty, wasn't it?
They were great, functional buildings. Like they worked, and it was always full. It performed very well from a pure real estate perspective, but the experience was lacking. Like there was a golf shop, there was one bar that was great for people from a particular business, and that was pretty much the extent of it. So what I would say, like we've really focused on, and this is what the model's all about, is our customers no longer just think about their demise space on a floor in a building. They're thinking about the whole experience. So what we've been really focused on is investing in the public space, like making sure that those add value rather than they're just spaces to walk through. We've focused on adding as much retail as we can. And, that's really thinking across buildings and different parts of the campus so that it's all about that experience for our customers, and then the buildings themselves. And so I think that's matured in a really exciting way at Broadgate. And actually this summer will be, after like 10 years of change, will be the first time when Broadgate South has really come to life in that way. So we're really excited to see that come to be. And we're now looking at what we do in other locations. So we've made big improvements at Paddington. Regent's Place is kind of next in terms of the existing campuses, but then there's Canada Water. And I think the really exciting thing about Canada Water is everywhere else we've come in and there was something there already. So we've been kind of working with that existing context. And at Canada Water, we get to start with a blank sheet of paper. And that's really exciting. And, the thing that we loved, it's got some amazing, physical infrastructure. So when they filled in the docks, they left water and green space. So, we spent a fortune putting a bit of grass into the middle of Broadgate. It's all there already. So we can build around that. We've also got that opportunity to, leverage that existing residential community, because one of the things we've struggled with in other locations is, if you don't have people there 7 days a week, retail offers a little bit harder, and retail creates a place. Canada Water, we know that's not a problem. Big existing community, they already pull in millions of people to the shopping centre. We can just build on all of that. So really exciting to have that opportunity to take our learnings from elsewhere, all those sort of conversations with customers we had, and apply everything to one place.
And when you're looking for a partner to develop these places, so obviously going with Conran for the dock shed development interiors, what are you looking for, and how do you make that decision on the brief? Who are you looking to attract, and what was it that made you decide to go with Conran on that?
Yeah, I think it's making sure we've got the right teams for the right parts of the project. So that sort of goes back to the point I've made. We've designed some great buildings over the years, and we work with a phenomenal range of architects to do that. Where we think people like Conran can add real value is that hospitality focus, that hospitality experience, the residential experience, because it just brings something different. And so we love that partnership between Allies and Conran. Allies have designed a beautiful building, collaborated with Conran to really bring that experience to life internally. And it just comes back to what's at the heart of hopefully everything we do at British Land, which is it's the focus on the customer, the experience. And you guys just have a huge amount of value to be able to help us deliver the very best product.
Well, to build on Mike's point about the evolution of the product, is we've been involved in a number of projects where it's retrofitting or improving an existing space. So there's a building that is a little bit cliche, it's a little bit white box, a little bit cold, a little bit transient. So how do you make it feel more attractive and more valuable to the tenants and the users. So that was about someone saying to us, we'd like it to feel like a great cafe to give some buzz. But we've designed lots of cafes and restaurants before, so we understand how layout, flow, ambience works. Then someone might say, we want this to feel more like a members club. It's like, well, we have actually designed a number of members clubs, so we're not guessing. Level of service, level of kind of acoustic quality, a level of finishes on things, so we can do that. But what's happened on the Dockshed project is early on, Team British Land and Team Allies and Morrison have been planning for this to be quite a special space in the lobby. So it's a great volume they've developed, but they also allowed there to be great lighting. The acoustics are better than typical. So they were building a kind of best-in-class shell to then allow a best-in-class cafe, lobby, social space to be within that. And that's an interesting piece of evolution, I think, from experienced developers, is that they're allowing it to kind of hit the brief early on. It's not, oh crap, we finished this project, there's X amount of space, fill it with some stuff, will you?
Yeah, it's that difference, isn't it, between making something like look good, and that's easy enough, versus something that's actually going to work and people are going to use it. And we've seen that at 100 Liverpool Street. 15, 16,000 square foot of shared space that could very easily be dead. It's buzzing every day of the week, and that was about that experience. And I think that's what you guys have helped us create at Dockshed as well. So yeah, great partnership.
On hospitality projects, they're very particular normally about where is it, who's it aimed at, what's the food that's being served, what's the hotel brand, price point, user. So, and even with residential as well, you're thinking, where does it sit in the market? Where's it sitting in the city? What type of building is it in? So we're applying that thought process to commercial spaces. And in this case, thinking about who is the user? How are they going to be occupying this space? And this was very much about not just thinking about the tenant and it being a value add to the tenant that they can break away and use it as amenity, but more that you pull your guests in and have meetings or informal meetings, or people arrive early and use the space or dwell in the lobby. So it's a big value add for the tenants as extra space, but also as an attractive amenity for them to use, which it's easy to say that. And I think you can show someone a plan and do that. But if it's just, again, a sea of furniture, it won't deliver on it. So we worked very hard with British Land about subdividing the space, creating quiet corners. A bit with a restaurant, you want every seat to be a good seat. So in this space, how is every seat a good seat? How are some spaces defensible? Some are public, some are more private, some are for groups. So they can flex and have team meetings down there, or you can have almost one-on-one private chats as well. So
that's the sense I got, and you've done something quite clever. It's turned the traditional on its head, where you talk about those big blank out open spaces that you felt very really exposed in, with you might have a piece of art and then there's a reception desk. You've gone quite dark on the interior. It's got beautiful metalwork for the framing, but it feels like quite nicely enclosed and gentle as you walk into it. So it's quite dark. So it feels like you've got little nooks and crannies and spaces you can go to. And as you say, there's a large bar running right down the centre. And we're seeing a bit of a movement towards the requirements of office space to provide that event space and, somewhere to host or for events and bring people down to sort of break out and stuff. Are you seeing more of that in what you're needing to offer?
100%. So, everything you've talked about in terms of like how we thought about designing that space has been about making that usable, making it an extension of our customers' workspace. And our whole amenity strategy, our whole campus strategy is focused on delivering spaces that are useful rather than gimmicky. And we've evolved in that. We built a building with a basketball court on the roof. Maybe that was a little bit gimmicky. It's nice. My kids love it. I'm not sure about people in the building, but it was, a point in time. The focus now is on things that are usable and what can people share. And, I do think that is going to become increasingly important to customers. And we're looking at putting more and more of those sorts of space in a building that people can use as an extension of their workplace. And I've really seen attitudes from our customers change on that. When we first started talking about it, I guess 8 to 10 years ago, some businesses got it, but and not singling out well, I'm going to single out ones. Some of the law firms would say, no, we need a 300-person event space for ourselves. And you'd say as well, how often do you use that? Well, we need it. The senior partner needs to be able to get everyone together. Yeah, but how often do you actually call people at short notice to be able to do it? And that conversation has completely changed. I think everybody we talk to now gets the value of sharing more. It helps them run a more efficient real estate portfolio. So, the CFO loves it. And environmentally, it has to make more sense to, work spaces harder and for people to share a bit more. So, yeah, absolutely core part of our proposition. And people like these guys are great at helping, make sure that works.
And I guess you're looking at the connective experience. Why do people want to come to the space? Get people back to work effectively. So you're creating this environment that people want to be. Because I guess Canada Water is not really the obvious choice. People think, I know it's so well connected because it's very near where I live. But I guess it's creating that destination, because the space is incredible, isn't it? But you've still got to hook people in to want to move there or want to work from there.
Well, to build on Mike's point, the idea of like the power lobby, like that might still be a time and a place for that, for certain locations and certain business types and certain messages that are being projected. But that's quite particular, I'd say. So this idea that you mentioned there, like it's more atmospheric, it's more calming, it's softer, warmer,
Smells good,
more approachable.
All of the senses.
Like some things that like just big drapes that suck in some of the noise, big plants that are there that kind of just put you at ease. Even things like recessing the concierge desk, or even calling it the concierge desk for a start, into a bit of a niche rather than it being on axis when you come in. So most people know where they're going anyway. Like the most footfall is tenants. And if they're the guests, then it's pretty obvious where you get some help. But you don't need this big desk in the way. So can you conceal the speed gates a bit better? So there's certain things you can work on to mask some of those functions, but do it in a more sophisticated way. Like the Hoxton Hotel 20 years ago, they put the concierge desk right at the back, so it made you walk through the bar. We're not going quite as far as that, but there's all elements like that even the barista in the cafe can help you as if he's part of the service team in the building as well. So it's a much more welcoming environment.
I love the walkway you've created around it as well. On the sort of mezzanine almost.
Yeah, the gantry as well, which is a bit theatrical as well. There's some meeting rooms up there, and tenants on the first floor can then come through that and walk down the stairs into the lobby space as well.
There's some fantastic art pieces that you've had constructed in there. How involved were you in the creation and the concept behind
Well,
those?
there's two layers to the art in the Dockshed. One is using elements from British Land's collection.
Right.
So they've got a fantastic collection. They've got a curator who can help us with that. So there's some strong pieces in there. And then there were some bespoke items that were developed as well, which are the big rope installations.
Yeah.
So they're more like installation art as well. So they took inspiration from the former use of the site, with it being the docks. So there's a link to the rope in then this weaving to do with craft that was in the area as well. So they're 7 meters high. They're pretty serious bits of work. And that was collaborating with a kind of designer maker on these. We came up with a concept, they helped deliver it. But they create a semi-transparent barrier to the space, and they help fill the volume, because it's a huge space, and it's a challenge to work with the architecture. So because these have certain finishes in them, a certain level of softness to them, they work, and they just give people a little bit of defensible space again, which is important in these large areas. So if your banquette has a side to it, has a back to it, you've still got some good sight lines maybe, and then there's this semi-transparent wall behind you, you feel more comfortable. You're not in that kind of like airport lounge vibe, right? It's more being in a restaurant.
And the building itself, beautiful nods again back to the docks history, and such an amazing view over the city. I went up to the terrace on, I think it's the 4th or 3rd floor, looking out the back. Such incredible views. I mean, the location itself is phenomenal, and I can see everything sort of popping up around it. And I see you getting more and more tenants to provide the retail offering. How are you getting on with the rental of the spaces? Because when we met, you were really excited about, we've got this sort of doldrums, people talking London down at the moment. I think a lot of it coming from the US, but you're actually very buoyant about the rental market at the moment, especially due to these sort of new AI businesses coming in.
Yeah, I'm super bullish on that at the moment. We've finished our financial year recently, put out a statement about that, but we've had a really strong year from an occupational perspective, and that's it's great for the business. It's good for London offices. I think what's been most interesting to me is this new wave of predominantly West Coast, frontier tech businesses coming to London to grow. And I take a lot of optimism, I think, from that. It's interesting doing the job I do and talking to occupiers around their long-term decisions. There's definitely been a few moments in time when what I read in the papers and what I'm hearing from people are fundamentally different. There was the post-Brexit referendum, every bank was moving to Frankfurt, and we were talking to this business, and they're like, yeah, we've had a look, but we're staying, and I felt very confident about that, and that proved to be right. There was post-COVID when most of my friends took pity on me because, what I did for a living, and no one was ever going to go back to the office again. But again, we were speaking to businesses, it felt very different. And this feels like another one of those. I think a lot of, the press at the moment is quite negative. It's not super positive about London, the UK, not very positive about, AI impacts of, but I'm pretty bullish on that. We're seeing some phenomenal new businesses come and grow, and great for business, as I said, but somebody who lives in London, has teenage children. I just think this is just good news generally. These are growth businesses coming to hire people because this is the best place in the world to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It obviously brings in nice problems to have. I know you've got several different offices. You've got, or offers rather, you've got your HQ spaces, you've got your story spaces, and then I think what you're calling work ready, which is how people can plug in and be helped. Obviously, these sort of scales of businesses, they're rapid growth, right? So that creates a problem for how you solve that. How are you getting on with that problem?
Well, so what we try to do at a campus level is we talk about having space for every business at every stage of their journey. So, for a long time, we just built bigger spaces on long-term leases and kind of left it. That was the model 15 years ago. The first step in changing that was introducing Stories. That's our flexible workspace business. That's been running for 6, 7, 8 years now, and does really well. That's a sort of serviced office business, premium end of the market. But what we realized is there's a couple of gaps, and so what we launched a few years ago is what we talk about as work ready. So these are single floor plates, fitted out, ready to go. We can add a layer of service on these so they become managed. That part of the market, that sort of proposition that we've delivered has been really, really attractive to this new wave of tech business because it's plug and play, it's easy to occupy. They know working with us that, if they're coming to Broadgate, there's another 4 million square foot to go at, so we can move them around and give them that flexibility to grow. And us, we're comfortable with those sort of shorter leases and that sort of concept of helping them grow because it's something that's fitted out that we know we can relet. So that model's proved really, really attractive to that part of the market. And the campus model works phenomenally well for the growth business. We've been doing it for years. We helped Meta grow and UBS, but now working with some of the most exciting names in the world who are coming to London and growing at scale. And the campus model, the flexibility of spaces, just gives them something else that other people just can't match.
How are you finding designing for that sort of flexibility offering? We've got businesses that are quite demanding now, and it's everything's moving at such pace as well. Just for every business, how many people might get replaced by AI and so on. How are you managing to design in the flexibility that people are looking for?
I mean, the flexibility in these amenity spaces is about having a certain amount of it to be fixed. Because if you don't fix anything, it's all just way too flexible and kind of trying to do everything. So we're trying to fix some parameters, some structure, and then within it there can be some flexibility. So for a cafe or a collection of meeting spaces, you're needing some anchors to it. So when you described there's a kind of 15-meter long cafe counter. that yes, food can be served on, coffee can be made at, people could have an informal meeting at the end of it as well. But then some of the other spaces are a little bit more flexible to be able to have a kind of a big kind of all hands kind of meeting, or smaller sessions as well for people as well.
Yeah. On the flexibility for these businesses, what I think we've found is the most important thing from a flexibility perspective is, what is that path to growth?
Yeah.
Because I haven't spoken to a single one of these like new wave of tech businesses coming to the UK who said, look, I'm taking 5,000 square foot and that's it. Everybody wants to grow. How do they scale? And so they're thinking, what does that next move look like? Where can I get additional space on demand? And so things like shared meeting rooms, shared event spaces, but also that, and I come back to it, that campus model, being able to move to another building, take a different type of space, that's what's critical. That's how we support this next generation of growth business.
And what for somebody listening now that's, maybe less experienced than you in the sort of hospitality world, and they're designing workspace, what could they take away from your experience, or what little lessons could you give for them to think about if they're approaching a new project to bring that hospitality plug into it?
Well, I think we have to be careful to overstate the hospitality edge, because it's an easy way of categorizing it. Okay, because it was just, it didn't a lot of workplaces didn't have the gyms or the rooftop bars,
Yeah.
or the cafes, or even such great end of trip facilities. Like now, there's some buildings popping up in London where the end of trip facilities are as good as a spa, and then they have got a rooftop restaurant that is as good as an actual rooftop restaurant they can see from their rooftop. So it's more that the expectations and the market has just escalated and caught up. So hospitality is a part of it, but equally someone might say, I'd like our lobby to feel more residential, or I'd like it to feel more spa-like or more club-like. So it's more about it reaching different typologies, and then each building having a stronger identity. I mean, Mike's on the sharp end of leasing spaces, but what is the point of difference for a tenant or a user of that space over another product? So how can you create something that's genuine, authentic, and you believe in? So if you were looking around a space to let yourself, you want to walk away with an emotional connection to it, not just a commercial decision, because you've looked at 5 spaces that afternoon or whatever, or that week. Okay, the black and white bit is pretty obvious, but what's the emotional side to it, the bit that you can't put on paper? So that's what we're trying to help developers or occupiers of space write into the brief at the beginning, set the aspirations, and then work as a team and deliver it. And with the dock shed, that was quite clear, is this wants to be a best in class, welcome to Canada Water, welcome to this project and this site, and bringing those elements together of it feeling welcoming, calming, generous, sophisticated as well. So although there's these big moves in there, like let's put a massive bar in, let's put this rope installation in, let's put 7-meter drapes in, there's loads of small details in there as well, that when you're sat down, this piece of furniture that's in there is typically more in a residential setting. There's some fantastic artwork. There's more tactility. So it's kind of following through on the brief and the ambition. And I think that's what Mike and their team are pushing the teams along to do that.
I can see it's a successful project. I mean, it's phenomenal, and I mean, you must be very proud of it.
It's amazing. It's getting a great response from people. Beautiful building in a great location, and we're excited about what it's going to do.
Yeah, on the point about the success of the project, something we've noticed is that we invested a lot of energy with the team at the end about high quality photography, styling, like we said, the planting in there, some bespoke elements. And that's all got a lot of eyeballs and attraction online on socials as well. When we launched some photography on it on our Instagram channel, it was the most successful of last year. So it's following something through right to the end about recording it, promoting it, and sharing it.
I think to your point earlier, you talked about identity and creating that sense of. I think you work from a sense of purpose all the time, Michael. I know I've read a few articles that you've written, but really understanding the why helps all that, doesn't it? You know, everything else just falls into place. But creating the brand, I think they've done a fantastic job on the brand. Even the signage for the tenant signage is beautiful.
Yeah, after something's finished and it looks very natural, you're like, oh, that looked easy, right? It's like, yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Just copy that.
I feel comfortable here. But that takes a lot of energy to get there, and also a lot of care and commitment from client teams to buy into it. So you're having to make a few decisions along the way, stick with it, be bold, be confident, and then you do have something that is authentic and has a depth to it as well. So you have, that's where sometimes things can come a bit unstuck, is you don't go the final hurdle at the end, or you don't realize that you should have saved a bit of the budget for some high quality furniture, artwork, styling, photography. That's the dressing of it as well. Yeah.
Thank you, chaps, for a very successful conversation on a very successful project.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Dan.